The Devin Witherspoon situation is exactly why the Steelers cannot sit around and act like Joey Porter Jr.'s price is going to stay where it was 6 months ago, because yesterday's price is not today's price, and the cornerback market is moving in a direction where every new deal is making the next one worse. If Seattle is really about to give Witherspoon around $32 million per year, that changes the entire conversation. It does not mean Joey automatically deserves every single dollar of that number right this second, and obviously you do not want to overpay anybody just for the sake of saying you kept your guy. That is how teams get into trouble. You still have to look at the player, the production, the consistency, the age, the projection, and what the contract is going to look like 2 or 3 years from now. But there also comes a point where the market is telling you what the cost of doing business is. And if that cost is getting uglier by the month, then sometimes you have to overpay a little now to avoid overpaying a lot more later. That is where the Steelers are with Joey. A more reasonable number might be around $27 million per year based on where he is today. And if Pittsburgh could lock him in at that price, I would do it immediately. I would not even let this thing drag into another round of extensions around the league, because once one corner gets $32 million, the next young corner with a strong case is not walking into the room asking for $24 million. His agents are starting the conversation near the top, and then the team is trying to pull that number down. Joey has leverage because he is young. He has already handled difficult assignments. He plays a premium position. And the Steelers do not have another player on the roster who can just step into his role if the relationship gets messy. That is the part people always ignore when they say, just let him walk if he wants too much. Okay, and then what? Go find another long, physical, proven outside corner in the draft and hope he turns it into Joey 3 years later? Spend a first-round pick and wait through the learning curve, pay somebody else's corner in free agency, and probably spend nearly the same amount anyway? That is not a real plan. The Steelers already did the hard part. They found the player, developed him, put him against top receivers, and watched him grow into one of the most important pieces of the defense. Now, the conversation is about keeping him before the market completely gets away from them. You do not want to hand out reckless contracts, but there is a difference between reckless and expensive. Joey is going to be expensive because good corners are expensive. Witherspoon's deal is just making that reality impossible to ignore. If Pittsburgh believes Joey is going to be here for the next 5 or 6 years, pay him as soon as you can, because the number that feels uncomfortable today might look like a discount once the next wave of cornerback contracts comes through. And there is another part of this that matters. Joey's contract would not be judged only by the first-year cap hit. NFL deals can be structured in ways that spread money out, lower the early burden, and give the team flexibility while the cap continues to rise. Pittsburgh can use a signing bonus, option bonuses, roster bonuses, and backloaded salaries to make the early years manageable. By the time the larger cap numbers arrive, the league's cap could be significantly higher, and another group of corners could already be making more. That is why the headline number cannot be the only thing that scares you. The guarantees, the cash flow, the exit points, and the timing of the cap hits matter just as much. A properly structured $30 million deal can be far healthier than a badly structured $27 million deal. Their job is not to pretend premium players should accept yesterday's market. Their job is to keep the premium player while building a contract the roster can survive. And this is where the TJ Watt contract has to enter the conversation, because the Steelers already showed they are willing to go above where a lot of people believe they should go when they think a defender is central to the identity of the team. They gave TJ around $40 million per year, and I understand why. He is a future Hall of Famer. He has been the face of the defense. He has won Defensive Player of the Year, and at his best, he can take over a game. Nobody is saying Joey Porter Jr. has accomplished what TJ has accomplished. That would be ridiculous. The point is about how the Steelers value age, position, and the future of the roster. If they were willing to overpay TJ at $40 million while he is entering the later part of his prime, then overpaying Joey at around $30 million is not some impossible contract that destroys the franchise. Joey would be signing that deal as a young corner entering the years where he should be at his best. You are not hoping he can hold off decline. You are paying for the prime. That matters when you compare the risk of the two contracts. TJ can still be excellent, but every veteran deal comes with the reality that injuries and age can change the value quickly. Joey's deal would be built around development and upside. Again, I'm not saying the Steelers should walk in and immediately throw $32 million at him without negotiating. Start at $27 million, try to get him around $28 million, structure it intelligently, protect yourself with guarantees and bonuses, and make sure the contract works with the rest of the young core. But if the only way to close it is going to $30 million, because Witherspoon just blew the market open. I am not losing Joey over the difference between $27 million and $30 million. That is $3 million per year in a league where the salary cap keeps climbing and where teams waste that amount on backup level players every offseason. The real mistake would be drawing some hard line, letting the relationship sour, watching Joey have another strong season, and then coming back to the table when the number is $31 million or $32 million because another corner got paid. Fans always say do not overpay, like there is some perfect contract sitting there waiting for you if you are patient enough. Sometimes there is not. Sometimes the market forces you to choose between paying a little more than you wanted or losing a player you cannot easily replace. That is why I keep coming back to the timing. The Steelers should not be reacting after Joey's agents have every bit of leverage. They should be trying to get ahead of it. The Watt deal proves this organization will spend massive money on defense when it believes the player is worth building around. Joey is not TJ, but he does not need to be TJ to deserve a major extension. He just has to be the best long-term answer at cornerback on this roster, and right now he clearly is. If $30 million is considered an overpay, fine. It is still a much easier overpay to defend than paying $40 million to an older edge rusher and then pretending the young corner is where you suddenly have to become cheap. The Steelers cannot talk about building through the draft, developing their own players, and keeping the core together, then hesitate when one of those homegrown players reaches the point where the bill comes due. There is also a football argument for doing it now instead of making Joey prove the same thing over and over. At some point, asking a young player to keep earning the right to be paid becomes a message of its own. He still has areas to improve, just like every young player, but the Steelers would not be paying him because he is a finished product. They would be paying him because they believe the next version of Joey will be even better. That is how smart extensions work. You buy into the player's growth before the finished resume makes the negotiation impossible. The DK Metcalf comparison makes the situation even harder to ignore because if the Steelers are comfortable paying a wide receiver around $30 million per year, then Joey Porter Jr. has every right to look at that number and say his value belongs in the same neighborhood. DK is a tremendous player. He changes how defenses line up. He brings size, physicality, vertical ability. I am not trying to take anything away from him. But when you look at the roster as a whole, Joey might be more valuable to what the Steelers are trying to become. A receiver can have a huge game and still be limited by the quarterback, the protection, the play calling, and the way the ball is distributed. A top corner affects the opponent every single week, regardless of whether he gets targeted 10 times or twice. If quarterbacks are avoiding Joey's side, that is value. If the defensive coordinator can shade help somewhere else because he trusts Joey outside, that is value. If the Steelers can match him against a number one receiver and keep the rest of the coverage structure intact, that changes what the entire defense can call. That type of impact is not always going to show up in interceptions, and that is why people underrate corners until they lose one and suddenly realize how much easier everything was when he was on the field. So if DK is worth $30 million to the offense, I do not think it is crazy to say Joey is worth something close to that for the defense. Would I prefer $27 million? Of course. That is the number that feels more reasonable right now. It gives Joey a massive deal. It respects where the market is going, and it leaves Pittsburgh a little more flexibility. But the Witherspoon report is exactly why reasonable numbers do not sit there forever. The market is not waiting for the Steelers to feel comfortable. Every extension at the top pulls everybody else upward, and by the time Pittsburgh is ready to move, $27 million could look like an offer from a different era. That is why they have to treat this with urgency. Not panic, not desperation, but urgency. There is a difference. Panic is giving a player anything he asks for without thinking. Urgency is understanding that delaying a decision can make the same decision more expensive. Joey has become one of the players this defense should be built around, and you do not keep a core together by waiting until every player has maximum leverage. You identify the guys early, you pay them before the market gets worse, and you structure the deal so it ages well. The Steelers have already committed huge money to TJ and DK, so this is not a team pretending it cannot pay stars. The question is whether they are going to prioritize the right ones at the right time. Joey is younger than both. He plays one of the hardest positions to replace, and his best football should still be ahead of him. If that means the Steelers have to go a little beyond their preferred number, then that is what they have to do. You do not want to overpay, but sometimes the worst decision is being so terrified of an overpay that you lose a cornerstone and spend the next 3 years trying to replace him. pay Joey now, get the deal out of the way, and let the contract look better every time the cornerback market rises again. And paying Joey would send the right message to the rest of the locker room. Drafted players should be able to look at Pittsburgh and believe that if they develop, perform, and become central to the team, the organization will reward them before the relationship turns into a public fight. That reputation matters. Joey is not asking the Steelers to gamble on a stranger from another organization. He is their own player, someone they know in the building, someone whose practice habits, health, personality, and fit are already familiar. Now that should reduce the risk, not create more hesitation.